I think trust in the modern day is very hard for people to have. Nobody really trusts anybody anymore at this point. So do you have any advice for how somebody could find that path that they can find some trust in? How do they know what the path is for them to trust?
Well, one thing I talked about in that video is that trust is your natural state, meaning that every time you wake up in the morning, you trust that the air going in and out of your lungs is going to be air. You trust that the water you're drinking is going to be water. You trust, I see I predicted that. I didn't even know you're drinking water. Oh, look at me. Okay. Anyway, so it's saying there's a certain amount of trust that you put in certain things. And so what I mean, like, you don't have to trust anybody. I'm not speaking about you being the next victim of a con man or anything, but once you realize the reality that the trees trust that there's going to be water in the soil, and they just allow, there's no resistance, right? And when there's no resistance to the internal you, as far as emotions come up, you're not scared of them, you're not pushing them away. And if you are scared of them, then you're receiving the fear itself and saying, okay, whatever, fear is normal too, it's all normal. That's a form of trust, and that allows a flow. When there's a lack of trust, what happens is that you block the flow of life inside you, and you are like a mystical machine. Like, you have all these little cog wheels and stuff, people call them chakras, and you have like over 72,000 meridians, like small pranic channels and stuff. Once you allow this process to happen, everything starts to take care of itself. So what I meant with that video was your internal mechanism. So when people have a lack of trust religion, as far as their point of view, they're holding on to the lack of trust point of view, right? If I'm holding on to I'm a saint point of view, that's another type of point of view. If I'm holding on to I need money all the time point of view, that's another point of view. You have to let go of all these points of view in order to let go of ego, and then a natural flow becomes empowered. And that flow takes care of things for you. And whether you trust or whether you don't trust, the same crap is going to happen. But the difference is that you'll actually enjoy your life, and you'll have an evolution of this internal experience if you allow trust to happen. There's everything that people are looking for is an elevated experience of this moment. That's all they're looking for. They've put conditions on it. They said, no, this must happen in order for my internal experience to change, or that must happen. But what happens if you give them this elevated experience automatically within? All of a sudden, you'll see all these goals and ideas that they had about what they should or shouldn't do. They just drop away. They're like, oh, I've already attained what I needed to attain. Now, maybe I'll play in life, but I'm not playing because I need to elevate my experience. It's just an expression of my freedom at that point. So the paradigm shifts. So what I would say, if people don't trust, if we're going to talk specifically with teachers and stuff, they would start doing experiments. Like I had some people when I was personal training that were incredibly overweight, right? And I'd say, okay, well, you have to do this diet, you have to do that, you have to do this. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, right? So they would come up with whatever sort of idea they have to in order to avoid doing that. But in the end, they had to decide somebody was right in order to just try the path that they're on. And once they decided that, they could, really do the experiment and find out if it worked for them or not. But that took a certain form of trust, even if it was just a little bit, right? So you have to be willing to conduct your own experiments. And if you're not at that place yet, then you're just not suffering enough yet. Right? Yeah. Like, people always will do what they want to do, right? And like, oh, life sucks. Oh, okay. Why don't you go get a job? Oh, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like it depends on where you're tied up. Will depend on how stubborn you are. And sometimes people that are extremely tied up in their ego but they're suffering, but not quite enough. They're like, no, I still think I'm right. I still want to be right, right? Because being right gives you a certain amount of pleasure, right? There's a tiny bit of pleasure in being right. That's what I found back in the day. That was the only pleasure I had left, was being right about something, right?
Right.
Then I realized, oh shit, I gotta let that go too. Fuck. and then this immense blessing would come through, right? I'd sometimes argue with my guru. I'd be like, no, that can't be right. That's not whatever. And she's like, no, just stop. And this thing, I get a spiritual slapping. And I'm like, okay. And then I just let something in. And then all of a sudden, bang, my heart would open. And there was this weird, like crazy, blissful, light, fluffy blessing and warm coziness that would move through my heart as soon as I did that. So the ability of the mind to crush your pleasure in life is astounding. That's why people go towards substances to poison their mind, right? They want to kill it, and then they get this high. But that high actually already exists within you once you master yourself, once you stop living just purely in the mind, or exclusively, that is. Yeah.